Hello painters, welcome to my watercolor painting channel. In this video I'm going to be looking at painting negative shapes and spaces. For a full list of the materials, please click on the show more words just below my website below this video if you're on a laptop, or the little arrow on the right hand side under the video if you're on a tablet. I've created a drawing of daisies here that I'm going to paint to show you how I deal with negative space. Let's just talk about positive and negative space. Positive space is your subject matter, so it is the daisies and it's the stalks. And negative space or negative shapes are the areas around your subject matter. Now I've drawn a little frame because I want my subject matter to touch the edges of the frame. If you can imagine some paintings that you might have done with a vase of flowers and you've put them in the center and they haven't touched the edge of the painting, they can look very static. But if you put your subject matter touching the edge of your painting, it creates movement. It's like looking through a window, and a window frame, and if you move the frame, you'd see more of your subject matter. So it's a really good concept to do. I've done a little drawing here just to show you exactly negative and positive shapes. See the lovely shapes that have been created by putting a frame and touching the edges. Some of the shapes are larger, some of them are small, but they are lovely. And now what I'm going to do is paint the background or the negative space first, and then paint the subject matter. And this is a great skill to learn when you're doing watercolor painting. I'm going to just wet my negative shapes, and I'm just going to do each shape individually. So that's a nice little shape there above the daisy, and I'm dropping in strong paint, not wash paint. This is strong, almost neat paint into it. I want some interesting things to happen on the paper. I'm going to keep a light area above that daisy. Now I'm going on to the next shape, wetting that and then dropping in some strong blue and some strong yellow. It's Aureolin and Cobalt blue. The Aureolin is a great colour for this because it's quite a strong colour and it holds its own. It doesn't get swamped by the other colours. I continue wetting around the shapes, and I'm just wetting part of this negative shape because it kind of goes on quite a bit down the paper. That's fine. I want it to be really wet while I'm doing this. And if you wet too much of the paper, it's going to dry before you get there. I'm still dropping in some darks into the bits that I've just done. They're still very wet. I assess as I go along, look back to what I've done and add more to it if I need to. I think I need a little bit of red in here now. It's just blue and yellow, which is great for a vegetation look. I'm creating greens on the paper, but I do need some red as well. So I'm coming round the flower and carving out the shape. And you can actually create some shapes in that wet and wet. I'll create a sort of a leaf shape, yep, with a bit of yellow and blue around it. That's fine. And you have to keep in mind when you're working with stalks that the shapes continue from one side to the other of the stalk. Otherwise it does look a little bit strange. The continuity doesn't work. That's lovely. That works beautifully with that blue. I love the way the blue runs in. This method really works very well for anything like animals in the environment or birds, your background. If you think when you actually look with your eyes, you focus on the thing that you're looking at, the animal, and the background is fairly blurred. When you take a photograph of it, everything is in focus, but you want to paint something as if your eyes were seeing it. This looks more real, otherwise it looks like a photograph. So this method is really lovely for all sorts of different types of painting. When you want to sort of blur the background a bit. Lovely little shapes by this daisy here, little shapes that create the shape of the petal. I lift it up, just let it drain a bit, and then pick up the little bead at the bottom if it gets too wet. I'm working, quite wet. I'm really wetting it quite a lot and then adding in the paint. So you might find these beads sitting there. What you do is you wipe your brush, wet it off first, rinse it off, wipe it, and then just slowly suck up the bead carefully. I'm leaving that area above the lower daisy soft. I want the top of the daisy to waft into the background there. As you can see, I've got mostly hard edges at the moment. I would be softening more, but it can get quite confusing. I want to show you this painting of negative shapes, so I've left most of the shapes hard for this exercise. I think I'm just about done there, so I'm going to let this dry and then we can tackle the stalks. It's dry now, and what I do for the stalks, I just love doing this. It's great for, the stalks of flowers or trunks of trees, is I wet it, I wet the shape, and then I just drop in some color, and it creates a sort of almost rounded effect. I'm going to try and vary some of these, the colors of the stalks. I'm using the same colors, and under the daisy there's a bit of shadow, there always is, so add a bit of blue to the bottom of just under the daisy for variation, a bit of dark. There we go. If you get a few crunchy edges, we can always take them out afterwards once it's dry, gently with the little nylon brush. That doesn't worry me too much. I've added a little bit of red to the stalks. Often the stalks have got lovely sort of red colours in them. Yep, a little bit of red there. I think that will do my stalks. Now I'm going to let that dry. Now we're going to paint our flowers. Lovely. So it's such a lovely way of painting this. I'm going to do the centers with my Aureolin, and I'm now bringing a new color in. You can either use burnt sienna, or I've got transparent red oxide. I quite like that one, and I'm using really neat transparent red oxide into the side of those. Really strong paint, very little water at all. I don't want it to just zoop up into the yellow. I want it to be just, it's a sort of shadow side of the center of the daisy. And I'm going to add some more yellow to that, and it just mixes so beautifully on the paper. That looks a little bit blobby at the moment, but you'll see. So I'm going to do this one as well. Let it settle a little bit, and then I'm going to come back into it with the yellow. And I'm softening some of the little edges of it. I don't want a sort of hard blob in the center of each flower. I'm adding a little bit of red there. Very, very pale on the petals. Just a variety of colors. Now I'm taking some of my strong yellow and dropping it back into that. And it mixes so beautifully. It sort of pushes away the transparent red oxide. I don't know if burnt sienna will do the same thing. I should try it out. But it's a lovely combination, these two. Add a little bit more and do it again. A little bit more paint of the browny color. It's a reddy brown color. It is still kind of damp, that yellow, and I'm doing some little dots in there to create, and then I'm going to add some more yellow to it. I'm just raising the board a little bit so that the paint all runs down, softening it. Yeah, I'm happy with those centers. Let's have a go with this one. Same thing, a little bit on the side, the shadow side of the center of the flower. Now some strong yellow into it to mix. Soften some of the areas, broken edges. Keeping in mind all three centers. Now I'm going to add a little bit of manganese blue, which is a really, really pale blue, and I'm going to just do some of the petals. It's a lovely blue, and it's very, very gentle when it's really watery. I just don't want all my petals to look white, so I'm putting, that's a little bit of the center of the bit of yellow there, that daisy looking upwards. Just about done. I think that's it. Here is the finished painting demonstrating negative shapes. I do hope you've enjoyed this video.